In this third video assembly guide for the de Havilland DH.89 Dragon Rapide, we are going to be focusing on assembling the tail. So on to the tail of the Dragon Rapide. And here's one I prepared earlier. So we've got all of the tail feather parts installed. We've even got things like the LED shrouded on the rudder. We've got the little counterweight. Doesn't really work, but on the rudder itself as a nice little detail. We've also got the tail wheel installed as well. And on this one, I'm in the middle of putting the control horns on too. You can see the rudder one is already installed here. I've yet to do the elevator. So we'll start on our other build with the horizontal stabilizer. So we'll grab that, and I also need to grab some other parts to start the build on this one. So I've just grabbed these 4 little lozenge-shaped pieces of the polyester sheet, the plastic sheet. These are actually the hinges. They should be scored in the middle so that you can get some flex and bend on them without them breaking. So what I suggest is just going through each of them and just making sure that they have enough flexibility and bend to make decent hinges. And the other thing that you can do, although it's not absolutely necessary, is you can see the hinge itself has been printed with a darker color in the center where it's exposed between the horizontal stabilizer and the elevator. But obviously it's not printed on the other side, so you can get I mean, I've got a black Sharpie here, but it could be a grey one or a brown or something like that. I'm just going to colour the other side of each of these where it's going to be exposed. There we go. These are actually semi-transparent, so when you turn it over now, it's just a little bit darker on the other side, and that hinge line that's been scored in there is actually has darkened up as well. So good. That's those are all done. We've got a little bit of preparation that we need to do with this part, as we will have to with all of the tail parts for the Dragon Rapide, and that namely is sanding down these edges to a chamfer, so that when we actually this obviously folds on itself. When we bring it together, we can actually squeeze this edge so that we reduce or eliminate the white line of the material itself, and also it gives a sort of a nice sleek leading edge to cut through the air when the aircraft is flying. So to do that, obviously we'll need a sanding stick. Here's my well-worn stick, and we just need to go around the edge, sanding, and doing it while you're holding it is probably not the best way of doing it, but it can work. What I tend to do is put this on the side. So, for example, like on the side of an edge, like there, and then just gently sand it. You can see, like so. So I'll continue doing this. We need to do it all the way around, and it's going to be quite a shallow chamfer as well, probably leading in about what, 5 mil all the way around on all 4 sides, and then we'll come to put the part together. So I'll just crack on doing that and be back with you in a second. So all sanded now, although you probably can't see that. So the next thing we need to do, as you can see with this part, it is scored down the center here, but what we're going to do is we're just going to assist it. I'm going to try and not cut all the way through, just because it makes it easier to get a nice accurate fold. But I want it so that it doesn't, there we go, it doesn't resist the folding. So that's pretty good. That's gonna glue really well. The other thing we need to do is put our little hinges in. So I'm just going to add a little blob glue internally. So that's the printed side. This is the internal side. I'm just going to put a smear of glue where the hinges are going to rest. There we go. And then I'm just going to pop them in there, and of course what we want is for the hinge line on the hinge itself to be external of the horizontal stabilizer. So I can just marry it up there, continue just all the way along, popping these in place, just using the pressure of the fold to push the hinge onto the glue. So you're seeing this going in very easy. That's because the holes for the hinges have already been cut, the locations, so it makes it nice and easy. But I'm sure you've seen that already. I'm going at about half a millimeter off the trailing edge of the horizontal stabilizer, that hinge line to exist. So there we go. And the other thing that we want to do is add some glue, and we don't need to put lots of glue on this to bring it all together. Obviously the material that's already present on the score is holding it at the trailing edge, but I'll give that a hand as well by actually adding some glue just along that area there, so that if it does decide to give up, then we've got something holding it. Just press that just to transfer the glue onto both sides, which makes more of an effective bond when it comes to pushing it together when the glue is dried. And now I'm just going around this edge that I've sanded, putting a decent smear of glue all the way around, if I can, right to that thin edge as well, because when it comes to pressing it together, obviously we want glue there, otherwise it's not going to stick. And then I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. So rather than bringing the two halves together and transferring glue, I'm actually adding glue to both these areas. So just got to be careful not to get glue on my fingers. I'll just finish off on this quarter. And also in the center there, and the center there. Great. Okay, well, I'm going to put that to one side now to dry. And whilst that's drying, we can start the process once again on the elevator. Let's just take this off the sprue or the sheet. Remember, it's not a sprue anymore. We did away with sprues. Okay, so great. Right, first thing I'm going to do, there is some carbon fibre in the kit. That should be, it's around about 46, 47 mil in length. It should fit between the two inner holes for the hinge there, and it's obviously there to strengthen this center part of the elevator and stop it twisting during operation. So we just need to pop that into place between those two locations. So this is a is either a 0.5 or 0.4 mil thick by 3 millimeters across. Just pop that there. There we go. And let that glue into place. And then we're going to do exactly the same on this part. Just sand all the edges all the way around so that when we fold it over and glue it, we can pinch these edges that have been glued on the trailing edge of the elevator to get a sort of a nice sharp edge to it. So much more like the real aircraft. So I'll crack on sanding this down, and I'll come back to you once I've finished, and we'll continue with the assembly. So this is all sanded now, all around the edge. I have done it to the depth of probably 6 or 7 millimeters, so it's relatively shallow. So I'm just going to do the same with this score as well. Just split it, well, not entirely split it. I just want to make sure that it folds nice and easily, while still keeping its integrity as at the leading edge of the elevator. So there we go. So what I'm going to do now is, as I did with the horizontal stabilizer, is just add some glue, firstly to ensure the leading edge stays stable. What I am going to do though is avoid putting any glue where the hinge will locate. So we can actually just sort of push it home with a bit of glue on it and bring the elevator and the horizontal stabilizer together. So yeah, once again avoiding that area where the hinge is going to go. So there we go, just hold that down to transfer some glue over. There we go. So that will work well as the contact adhesive, and then just put that smear of glue all around the edge. Once again, making sure we get right to the edge. And one of the reasons for letting the glue dry is obviously we can use it as a contact adhesive, which is fine in this case because obviously this is a folded piece, so the two halves should come together very accurately without us having to make too much effort making sure that's the case. But the other thing is so that we don't get large amounts of glue splurging out and having to try and wipe it away. Because obviously this is the foam, it's easier to use lighter fluid on it if we do need to do any clear up. So that's one advantage over the Tyvek. Tyvek doesn't like lighter fluid. It won't melt, but it does distort and misshape if you put too much on. So I'm going to pop that to one side to dry off, and we can bring back our horizontal stabilizer, and we can just pop this together now. So we're literally just going to fold it over like so to bring the two halves together, and then we need to concentrate our efforts on the edge here, and I'll simply just push down and run my finger around there, and that should bring it together. Same on that side, and then we'll flip it over and do the same, and that should pinch our chamfered edges together so that we have a nice sharp leading edge. And obviously if you need to press down any further, show it any further attention, then you can do that. And if you find that there are gaps where the glue hasn't taken, then what I do suggest is using something like an old discarded blade, something like that, just popping a bit of glue on the end, and then you can pop that into the gap, pop the glue on there, let it dry off, and then go through this process again. But essentially provides you with a nice horizontal stabilizer, nice and flat. There we go. We've got our hinges still protruding in places we need them to. Good. So I'm going to bring this back. Needs a little more time to dry, so I'll just pause and we'll come back when it's ready. So same process with the elevator. And just fold it over like so. Just giving extra attention to where the carbon fibre sits. And then just same technique, adding pressure, just using the tip of the finger all the way around. Flip it over, do the same the other side. More attention to that area there. On this particular part, the only difference between top and bottom is that you have a slot cut on one side, and that designates the bottom part of the elevator. There's no differentiation between with color or anything like that, so that's the way to determine it. So once again, with the horizontal stabilizer, it can be up either way. So when we bring that to bear on this on the horizontal stabilizer, just make sure that that's bottom. Well, I don't suppose it really matters. You can put it either way, and just when you apply it to the fuselage, you orient it so that the slot is underneath. So anyway, what we probably won't be able to do at the moment is, oh yeah, it will slot in. So the gaps that I left in the glue are working. What you can do is, if you find it difficult to push in there, if you just go into the slot with your scalpel and you can just open it up a little bit. Just to make sure that these hinges push home. And of course we can dry fit this first, just to make sure. Okay, so let's give it a go. So it looks like we can push that all the way in. Obviously we'll need to leave a gap to allow the movement of the elevator. If it's too far in, then the edges, the leading and trailing edges, will interfere with one another. So like that, it makes it a little more difficult. So just leave a little half-mil gap, or millimetre, whatever you think is suitable. Like so all I'm going to do, I'll grab that off there, just add a few smears of glue to the hinge front, and before this glue has time to get too tacky, I need to push those into the slots. Otherwise, it'll be difficult. One, two, three, four. Good. So just push that home. Make sure our gap is relatively even. So I can slip slide it around at the moment. There we go. So that's that particular structure done. So on to our vertical stabilizer, which on this particular model has the Royal Mail emblem on too, signifying this aircraft was used to run mail as well as passengers. So let's just take that off. There we go. Put that to one side. And this also uses, you'll see the two slots cut in the brake line there and the score. And those actually require some hinges as well. So let me just grab those from the plastics. There we go, 1, 2. I took it from the the wrong plastic set. That's the one that I'm already building from. So hence, there we go. That's the one that I'm using at the moment. So we've actually got 4 left there. So I think we've got two extras. Excuse me, I'm just having a slurp of tea. Right, before we put these hinges on, once again we can add our little coloration to the reverse side. go. And on this particular part, we need to create a chamfer along the leading edge of the vertical stabilizer. So once again, we get a nice sharp leading edge for the aerodynamics of the aircraft. So I'm going to sand these down, and I'll get back to you once that's done. All sanded, we've got a chamfer of about 5-6 mil. And so what we're going to do, once again, exactly the same technique, put a little bit of glue in for the hinges. Put those hinges through. And the other one. Obviously make sure that they are as perpendicular as possible to the trailing edge. And then we can start adding some glue to this particular part. Right to the edge there, on the top, back edge as well. Also a little tab at the bottom to bring that all together. And repeat the process on the other side. There we go, and then set that aside to dry, and we'll bring that all together once the glue has had time to set. And we're down to our last two pieces on our tail sheet. So let's just extract Z4 and Z5. Go. And once again, I'm guessing you can probably guess what we have to do next. And that is to turn these over and then chamfer the edges on both sides. You only need to do the curved areas. Obviously the leading edge and the top underside there, they can remain as is, although as you can see I've got a little bit of a protrusion there, so I can just take that off with my sanding stick. So just clean these up. Right, I shall get sanding these areas, and we will come back and have a look how we progress from there. We have completed our sanding, and this is a little deeper. We're running at about I should say 10-12 millimeters on that. But there's something a little bit different when we're doing the rudder, and we'll come on to that in a second. First of all, the vertical stabilizer has now dried sufficiently, so we can bring these parts together just by folding like so. And then once again we can run our finger down here. We've got this little shaped bottom to the stabilizer, and obviously we've got to be a little bit careful about that. But this actually gets swathed in a boot that sits on the bottom anyway, so don't be too concerned about that. So let's just press this home. There we go, nice. Nice leading edge on that, nice sharp leading edge. That's it. Good, and just make sure that these hinges are perpendicular. There we go. Plenty of movement. Excellent. The other thing we can do is this tab, the end, goes into a slot at the back of the fuselage, which I'm sure you've seen. We're just going to pinch the bottom of that, and it just make it easier to insert it when it comes to installing. So go. Oh, a bit of glue. Just get rid of that. Right, so put that to one side, and we will continue with our preparation on the rudder. So obviously at the back of our aircraft we have this LED sticking out, and this forms part of the rudder itself. So what we need to do is, just so we know where we're putting it, there's on the graphic on the rudder itself, let's see if I can bring this a little bit closer so we can see, you've got these two lines here and here, and it literally, the LED sits between the two. What I'm going to do is just remove about a mil and a half of material from just between those two lines. So there we go. You can see that. I've removed that, and the LED will nestle into that hole. Obviously we need that on the other side as well, so I'm just going to marry these two parts up like so temporarily, and just locate that cut on the other half. That's where the cuts have gone now. There we go. Excellent. And the other thing that I want to do before we bring these two parts together, in fact we won't bring the two parts together straight away, but what I want to do is, there's some stickers that we put internally that help to hide the darker colours of the wire that runs through the rudder. So let's just get our sticker pack, and these are S3s. They're white, so they actually don't show up, but you should be able to see the cut lines. So, and they install like so. I'll show you. So this is on the inside of the rudder, and we need to run from where we put the cutout in, just at right angles like so, and we do exactly the same for the opposite side. go. So what we can do now is pop that to one side, and we can start looking at installing our tail feathers onto the fuselage itself. So once again, we can dry fit. Don't forget the attachment point for the control horn goes underneath, and this should literally sit on the platform at the back there, and just make sure that you have clearance for the elevator to move up and down. So that hinge line should be hovering over the back of the fuselage, like so. So that's where we need to place it. We can also check just by eyeball that it's lining up horizontally with the rest of the fuselage, just by taking a look down that whole section there. So you can see that yeah, that's pretty good to my eyes. So all I need to do now is put some glue in there, but before I do, I'm just going to check that this goes into the slot. There we go, that's fine, and sits where it's supposed to. Yep, and that gets installed after we've put the elevator and horizontal stabilizer in place. So let's get our glue out and pop a generous amount onto the platform. And then we can pop the part in place like so. You've got these lines on the part itself, so you can ensure that it runs perpendicular that way to the center line of the fuselage by making sure that those line up with the sides of the fuselage, like so. Excellent. So now popping on the fin, you can just do a quick dry run, just to make sure we get that in place, and then we can just grab a bit of glue, put it in the areas that are needed. There's already a little bit of glue in that slot. As I said, the bottom of the fin will be shrouded, so we can be fairly generous with the glue and not worry too much about stuff splurging out, as it'll get covered anyway. And then that sits in place on the tail. It presses down slightly, so you might just need to come back to that once it's dried off. As you can see, there's a bit of a gap there at the moment. That actually needs to sit so that it's fully depressed onto the surface, and then you get a nice straight line between the fin and the fuselage where the rudder will be sitting. So we'll just let that all dry off, and then we'll come back and start the process of shrouding the fin with the fuselage itself. So the parts we need for that shroud are T26 and 27. and they are on the Fuselage Tyvek sheet. Now these parts need some shaping. It's an interesting process because these are a lot smaller than the parts that we have had to shape so far, and it's not difficult, but it's best done after you've been shown how to do it. And the Tyvek's pretty forgiving, so you've got plenty of leeway to be able to do it. So before we attach them to each other, what we can do is we can start the shaping. First of all, there should be a score on these little these tabs at the edge. There should be a score there, and so you can fold each one over individually. That last little one's a little more difficult than the rest, but they should all fold over like so. You can push them fairly hard down on the opposite side just to get a good fold, and then we need to start shaping. And I generally use something like this is a little bit of 2mm carbon fibre. You'll notice a shadow that runs from about there to the back of the part there, and we need to roll that out. So I'm just pressing the material against this 2mm rod, so this sweeps up very slightly, so I'm just making sure that that becomes part of this shape. And what I'm trying to do is to get it to bend gently through around 90 degrees, because this is what sits sort of between the two planes of the tail feathers. So just make sure we get that upward sweep as well. So there we go. Hopefully you can see, focus in on that shaping. There we go. We just do that for the opposite side as well. This one hasn't got any tabs on. What it does do is little, just get rid of a bit of flash. And then, yeah, same process, just opposite direction. So we are actually rolling this material on the printed side. Okay. So the more convincing you can make the curve, the easier it will be to fit. You'll notice that the Tyvek is it's quite an unusual material to handle. It's quite smooth. It's almost sort of soapy in texture. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but so I'm also going to put a curve in the end there too, where it sort of hugs around the front of that fin, and ditto on this side. So there we go. Hopefully that'll be effective. So now what I need to do is join these two pieces together, and that's done by just putting some glue on those tabs. so, and popping some glue on the underside of the other half too. We're going to let this dry off, once again trying to avoid any wet glue squeezing out, and we can go from there. Let's bring these parts together and then get it fitted onto the fuselage. So literally bring the leading edges of these two parts together. Try not to get too much in the way of the little gaps between those tabs showing. There we go. Reinforce our curve. You are, I mean, to some extent, you are pulling this material in ways that it doesn't really want to go, but it will. Expose those little gaps a little bit too much, so we'll just bring it together like that. We'll probably shape it a little bit more once it's on the aircraft. So we now have our little shroud completed. What we need now is our aircraft back, and this actually ends up sitting right there. So it needs some encouragement to go into the various areas that it needs to, but that should cover up all of the sins underneath. So applying this, what I tend to do is pop some glue at the front here where it comes into contact with the deck, the top deck of the aircraft, just at the front V there. And then I'm going to put some on the inside sidewalls where it comes into contact with the fin. So and I'm actually going to put inside the those lines that you have on either side that help you line up the whole structure with the fuselage, or previously. I'm just going to add some glue there and around the base. There we go. The reason for doing that is if I put it onto that part there, when you close it in, we've got glue on the underside there. It may drag on the foam and deposit glue where we don't want it, which is obviously what we want to avoid. Some on my finger there, just cleaning it off. So let's go in with the tweezers so we can position this well at the front there. And then we can do this one side at a time. So use the tweezers to push down. And then you can actually use that that rod again, or you can use the rear side of the knife just to make sure everything goes down into place. And we can flip over and do exactly the same on the other side. And then what we'll do is we'll just leave, there are a few little bits of finessing that we can do there, but we'll let the glue set first. Let's just get rid of, I noticed a blob of glue residing. I've just taken that off with the back of the knife. So there's a little bit of extra there, just peeling off. There we go, but you can see the effect of that. It all works quite well sitting there. So we can now look at popping the rudder on. So before we do anything, I'm just going to make sure I've got the LED located. So I think that's the one there. Yep. So, and then I'm just going to pull some of the excess out here so I can position it on my rudder. So I literally want to glue the LED in that position there, and then I can run the wire down internally. So let's just pop a lot of glue on there. And actually I'll run some glue down the sticker as well. It'll help us. I'm just going to pop the LED in place. There we go. Then I'm going to get some glue onto this wire. I'm trying to keep it as flat as possible so it doesn't create any unnecessary contours in the rudder itself. Once again, we can probably use tweezers or other tools, keep our fingers out of the glue. There we go. So we'll just let that dry off and settle in. And then what we're going to do is attach that to the tail, and then put the other side of the rudder onto it once that's installed. Means we can encase the hinges quite easily, and obviously all the LED structure as well. Right, the rudder's just about ready to be popped onto the fuselage. So what we'll do is just pull through the LED wire. So it's there we go, like so. So there's still a little bit of flexibility, but it's all tidying out the way. I'm not interfering with the movement of the rudder or the elevator. And then we can glue our rudder into position obviously once again leaving a slight gap for the movement of the rudder itself. And obviously the 3 attachment points for the rudder are the hinges at this point, and the lower hinge, which we installed when we put the fuselage frame together. So let's just pop some glue onto each surface, and down at the bottom as well. There we go. Position. Obviously, there are a few things to line up here. We've got your gap, then you've got the gap between the top of the rudder and the fin, and then you've also got the bit down at the down below the elevator as well to all line up. So there we go, all in position, and we'll let that firmly dry before we then put our other half on, like so. So we'll come back to that in 5 or 10 minutes, or in a few seconds for you guys. Right, let's apply this glue. As with the rest of the parts for this tail, it's getting the glue right around the edges. Nice thin smear, no gaps. Got that LED to contend with. When because we've sanded it so thin at the edge, it's quite a compliant material, and will with a bit of pressure will form around that, and obviously the leading edge of the rudder as well. Okay, and across the top, and we will repeat that process on the other half. And once again, we will let this glue dry before we put the 2 halves of this together. Which means, as I said before, a lot less chance of the glue squidging out and causing marks on the material itself. So good. Right, whilst that is drying, there are a few bits we can grab. My plastic's gone. Here we go. We've got a little counterbalance that goes on the front of the rudder, which is P17. We can pop that off. It's a nice little detail for the aircraft, which is obviously fairly prominent. It's only small, but fairly prominent. So that's just simply 2-part piece. Those 2 arms there just sit together, and then you've got a little sort of gapped area here which will sit on the front of the rudder either side. But what we can do is just apply a little bit of glue just to the bulb and stem with a counterweight. Guessing that's what it is. That's what it looks like on some other aircraft as well. I know they counterweights come in all sorts of different guises on aircraft, but I'm assuming that's what this is. So I'm just transferring the glue to the other side, and then I'm going to let that fall apart and put that safely to one side for now. So when it comes to installing it, it's ready to go. And the other parts that we will actually need, the tail wheel itself, which actually fits onto the rudder. So we've got a little bit of ground steering. Now this isn't how it is in the original aircraft, but it looks very close. So that's what's important. And obviously, when you're designing these aircraft, it's you need the tail to be as light as you can possibly get it, because that acts as a very big lever on the rest of the aircraft. And what you don't want to have to do is put too much ballast up front to counteract it. So put that to one side. What I did notice on this prototype build is that the slot for the control horn is actually on the wrong side. So I'm just going to cut a slot on the other side to actually accommodate that. Okay, so all we're going to do here is just apply some glue to either part on the underside, so that when we bring it together onto the rudder, they'll stick quickly. So I'm just going to use our transfer glue technique, just popping that top there, and then just go. To the side, corner there, out of the way, and then let's have a look at bringing this rudder together. The glue looks dry to me, so let's pick this up. Obviously we want to attach it accurately. So I think we have it. Well, looks fine apart from the little nick that I made at the back there. Doesn't seem to line up with our LED anymore for some reason, so let's just that. That's better. So now it's just about pressing these edges together. So once again we get that nice sharp edge to both the leading and trailing edges of this rudder. So what I'm actually going to do is take this to the edge of the table, which obviously I don't have in shot, and just press using my finger once again to go around the edges to firmly push it into place. So I'll do that now, and then we'll come back and start fitting all the other bits and pieces. So we now have this nice sharp edge to our rudder and plenty of flexibility. So let's get our little counterweight. Just fold that over so it sits together like so, and then that slots onto the front of our rudder. You can see there. I'll just glue that into place. So there's just a bit of glue needed on the inside of the little triangles at the end here. Too much there, so let's just move that away. Then we can pop that on like so. Go, and then we just need to line it up so that it is pointing in the right direction. Go. Just let that glue dry, and then you can press it home. It's fine. Superb. Right. Tail wheel. So we pop on one side first, and you literally just line up the graphics for the tail itself. There we go. Move that down a little bit. That's it. And then pop it onto the other side too. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a little bit more glue, because obviously this is quite a structural part. Just going to add a little bit more glue onto the rudder, the external part of the rudder where it comes into contact, and maybe just a little more on the, freshen it up a bit. Okay. Up on that. Get it all lined up. Fantastic. Right, I won't press that home just yet. Just let the glue dry off a little bit, and then we'll bring it all together. So the last bit that we've got to do is to add the shroud to the LED at the back there, and this is once again hopefully the coving around the fin has got your fingers in the mood for doing something quite extraordinary with some very small pieces of tieback, if I can find them. Bear with me a second. So on your nacelle sheet here, you should have a T28s. You've got two T28s and two T29s. You only need one of each. but it gives you an opportunity to practice. So if you stuff it up a bit, then you've got more to go with. So from a flat piece of material, we're attempting to make something that looks fairly complex. Now, as you can see, it's sort of a half elliptical part, and let's bring that up, see if it'll focus in on. Not focusing. So you can probably see there is a little shadow that runs in an elliptical fashion there and there. What we want to do is just on the outside is just add a score that runs pretty much on the inside of that shadow, just using the back of the knife. So you've got to do this sort of freehand. See, I'm doing it quite slowly. There we go. And the idea is that you can then fold that up like you were doing the sort of the prow of a boat. Like so. But anyway, we'll let that do its thing at the moment. Now what we want to do is we also want to curve this central area here, because this is what sort of surrounds the half of the LED and also sits most part on the rudder. So I'm just curving this around the 2mm rod that I've got here. So, and then I'm just going to hold this with the tweezers and just pull those scored parts out again to the side, going a little bit further with the tweezers. Right, so hopefully we'll be able to see the sort of shape that I'm trying to create there. I just rotate that around. You can see the sort of shape that we're looking for. And then once we're kind of at that stage, we can think about applying it to the rudder stroke LED. So we want this to sit, just get up, we want it to sit just sort of there. So it overlaps the LED, and the edges of these sort of flanges at the side sit around about the back edge of the trailing edge of the rudder, like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the side of our LED, like so, and then a little behind it where that part will come to bear. And then on the part itself, I'm going to add some glue to those phalanges. Phalanges. There we go. So I'm going to pop that on now and use time and the setting glue to manipulate this into place. So I'm not bothered in getting it all down straight away. It's just a matter of getting it into the right place at the moment. And then we can ask a little more of it once the glue has dried. So that I'm happy with the position there. So we'll let that dry off, and whilst that's drying, we'll shape our second side. Okay, so a bit of folding. Now this is what people who make paper models do all the time. This is probably a huge piece for the sort of things that they get involved with. I've seen some tank tracks being made, each individual part made from paper or a thin card. So they have to do this sort of thing over and over and over again, hundreds and hundreds of times, which yeah, I mean, that's dedication for you. At least you only have to do this a couple of times. Right, I shall start positioning that on the other side of the rudder. So all I'm doing now is pressing home the Tyvek material into the shape that's required, pushing it down around the LED to get good coverage over that, just sort of allowing the tip to protrude, and try not to get too much glue all over the place, although I've got a little bit there that probably need to be cleaned up. Let's see, should work its way off. I'll go over that later with a bit of light fluid. So I've done both sides now, and as I said, the Tyvek really does eventually comply to what you're looking for. You just have to be pretty careful when shaping it, but with the glue to hold it down, it does become very compliant, and you can create a lovely little shroud there for the tail light. So we've got a tail wheel in place. We've got rudder, elevator. The only other things we need to do now is put the control horns on for the radio control of the aircraft itself. I've just noticed we've slightly missed the slot here. It's probably because of my terrible slot cutting, which you won't have to do. So I'm just going to open that up a bit for the control horn to go into. Right, let's get those control horns off the sprue and onto the aircraft. So we need P21, or P20, 21 and 22. So you can use both P20 or P22 for either of the control surfaces. P21 is reserved for the base plate for the elevator. So obviously these control horns need to be folded over and glued. I'm just going to increase the score depth just so that fold is compliant. Make sure the holes for the control wires line up, and then just apply a little bit of glue on the inside. Go. And do the same with our other part as well. Let's just give that another little rescore. Add some more glue. Let that dry off, and we'll come back and pop those on once the glue's dry. Okay, let's get these folded over, gluing. The one thing that you can do, and once you have got them glued together, just to maybe clear out any excess glue in the holes, is just pop a wire, and it could be the control wire that you that's supplied in the kit, just to make sure that the holes are clear of any debris. Sometimes you get a little bit of swarf left from the laser cut, so it's always worth giving just a looks like these are slightly misaligned. That's all right, just work it through. Marvellous. Right. So, first one to install, we don't need a plate because the plate's already there. That is the rudder. Just check it fits. Seeing as I cut the slot for this one. Yeah, that's fine. So let's get a bit of glue on that. Put that in place. So that's now on the rudder. We'll just leave it there for the glue to dry, and the bond there should be enough that it will be an effective control horn. Just saying that's not quite bedded down, so that's better. Good. Okay, so on to our second control horn, and this slots into the plate like so, and that plate sits on there, and the protrusion from the top there goes into that slot that you can see in the elevator. So let's just add some glue to that whole structure and pop that into place, and there we go, it's done. So there we have the completed tail section of our de Havilland Rapide. The next step will actually be putting the wing stubs onto the aircraft, and then carrying on with the nacelle positioning too. So that's next.